Listen closely, my children, for this is the story of how the sky first learned to weep, and the earth drank its fill.
They say in the old lands of the Eastern Cape, near the shadow of Table Mountain, that darkness is not the absence of light, it is a living thing that waits. The elders warned us. They whispered it around fires that now barely flicker. But we did not listen. The sun disappeared the day the Shadow King was crowned. I remember it like yesterday, though I was not yet born. My mother tells the story with tears that never stop flowing. She says the sky turned the color of old bruises, purple, gray, sick yellow, and stayed that way. That morning, King Zuberi stood before the great Imizi tree, the ancient meeting place of our village of Masakane, and he made a choice that cursed us all. 10 years he had ruled in light. 10 years of harvests and laughter. 10 years of children playing in sunshine that kissed their skin golden. But Zuberi wanted more. He wanted power that never faded, strength that never waned, a kingdom that stretched beyond what the sun could reach. So when the shadow traders came, those strange men who appeared at twilight wearing cloaks that seemed to eat the air around them, Zuberi listened. They promised him dominion over all realms, power eternal, a crown that would never tarnish. The price? Simple. The sun. You fool. Mama Thandi screamed when she heard what he'd agreed to. She was our oldest Sangoma, the keeper of ancestral wisdom. The sun does not belong to you to give away. But Zuberi laughed. I am king. Everything in my kingdom is mine to command. The shadow traders smiled with teeth too white, too sharp. They cut open his palm, let 3 drops of royal blood fall onto a stone darker than any night, and spoke words in a language that made the earth shudder. The sun began to dim. First slowly, like a lamp running out of oil. Women looked up from their cooking fires. Farmers paused in their fields. Children stopped their games, confused. Then faster, the sky pulled itself closed like a great eye shutting, and the sun became a fading memory, a ghost of light barely visible through thick, eternal dusk. It has been this way for 12 years. 12 years of half-darkness. 12 years of crops that barely grow. 12 years of children born who have never seen true daylight. I am one of those children. My name is Eyes, and I was born the night the darkness became complete, 9 months after the Shadow King's bargain. Mama says I came screaming into a world of shadows, and that my first cry shattered 3 clay pots in our rondavel. She says the darkness pulled back from me just a little, as if afraid. What does it mean? My father asked Mama Thandi as she held me, this strange infant who seemed to glow faintly in the gloom. The old Sangoma touched my forehead with trembling fingers. Her eyes went white, seeing what others could not. When she spoke, her voice was not her own, it was the voice of the ancestors, ancient and terrible and kind all at once. This child walks between worlds. Born of darkness, touched by light. The balance will rest in his hands. Then she collapsed, and would not speak of it again for years. But I am getting ahead. Let me tell you how the darkness changed us all. The village of Masakane means, let us build together. But in the eternal dusk, we barely survived, let alone built anything. Plants grew twisted and pale, giving just enough harvest to keep us from starving. The cattle grew thin, their milk weak. The children grew quiet, as if the darkness pressed down on their spirits. People moved like shadows themselves, their faces gaunt, their eyes always searching the gray sky for a sun that would not return. King Zuberi aged rapidly. The shadow trader's bargain gave him power, yes, he could move through darkness without stumbling, could see in the gloom better than anyone. But his hair turned white within a year. His skin became gray as ash. His eyes became empty holes that seemed to swallow light. He built a palace of black stone in the center of the village, tearing down the old community hall to make room for it. Inside, he kept the shadows thick as oil. We heard him whispering to things we could not see, laughing at jokes no one else understood. He speaks to them, Mama would say, making the sign against evil. The shadow spirits. They own him now. As for me, I was strange. While other children stumbled in the gloom, I could see clearly. While others grew pale and weak, I remained strong. I could navigate paths in the deep darkness where even adults with torches would lose their way. And sometimes, when I touched things, they would glow faintly, just for a moment, with a light that had no source. The other children feared me. They called me Shadow Walker. They said I was cursed, marked by the same darkness that had stolen our son. Only my mother defended me. He is blessed, she would say firmly, pulling me close. The ancestors chose him for a reason. Then let them come tell us the reason, the villagers would mutter. Let them explain why we suffer. But the ancestors were silent. Or so we thought. On my 12th birthday, the exact day I had lived as many years as the darkness had ruled, Mama Thandi came to our home. She was ancient now, bent like a question mark, her face a map of wrinkles. But her eyes were sharp and knowing. It is time, she said. Time to show him what he is. My mother's face went pale. He is just a boy, Mama Thandi. He is more. The old Sangoma looked at me with something like pity, something like pride. And the darkness grows deeper every day. Soon, Zubari's bargain will take the last light, and we will live in total night forever. The child must know his purpose before that happens. That night, Mama Thandi took me to the sacred cave beyond the village, the place where our ancestors' spirits gathered. My mother came too, holding my hand so tight it hurt. The cave mouth breathed cold air that smelled of earth and time. Mama Thandi lit no torch. She needed none. And neither did I. As we descended into the darkness, the walls began to glow. Faintly at first, then brighter. Ancient paintings appeared, images of the sun, of ceremonies, of great battles between light and shadow. And in the deepest chamber, where the air hummed with power, there was a pool of water so still it looked like black glass. Look, Mama Thandi commanded. I knelt beside the pool. My reflection stared back, and then it changed. My eyes began to glow. Not with light, exactly. With something else. Something that was both shadow and illumination at once. My skin shimmered. And behind me, in the water's surface, shapes began to form, the faces of the ancestors, watching, waiting. Then one face came forward. An old woman with kind eyes and a warrior's bearing. Eyes, she whispered, her voice rippling across the water. Child of two worlds. You were born for this moment. What moment? My voice shook. What am I? You are the sunbearer. The one who can walk in shadow without being consumed, who can touch light without being burned. You are the balance between them. But I don't understand. The ancestor's face grew stern. The Shadow King believes he controls the darkness. He is wrong. The darkness controls him. Every day, it feeds on his soul, on his humanity. Soon, there will be nothing left of Zubari but hunger and shadow. And when that happens, the darkness will spread beyond this village, beyond this land, until all the world lives in eternal night. My mother gasped behind me. You must face him, the ancestor continued. You must restore the balance. Not by destroying the darkness, darkness has its place in the world. But by ending the bargain that was made with stolen blood and greed. How? I whispered. I'm just a boy. The ancestor smiled sadly. You will know when the time comes. Trust the light within you. Trust the shadow that does not corrupt. Trust that you are exactly what you were meant to be. Then the faces faded, and the pool became just water again. Mama Thandi put a hand on my shoulder. Now you understand. But I didn't. I was terrified. How does a 12-year-old boy face a king who commands shadows? The next morning, or what passed for morning in the endless dusk, I woke to find my hands glowing. Not brightly. Just a soft luminescence, like moonlight trapped under my skin. I stared at them, afraid, amazed, confused all at once. "Mama!" I called. She came running, saw my hands, and her face split into a smile even as tears ran down her cheeks. "It is happening. The ancestors are waking your gift." Over the next weeks, the light grew stronger. I learned I could make it brighten when I focused, dim when I relaxed. But more than that, I discovered something strange: when I touched things that were sick or dying, they healed. A dying chicken that I held for a moment began clucking again, laying eggs the next day. A withered plant that I brushed against burst into bloom, its flowers glowing faintly in the gloom. My father's infected wound, which had festered for weeks, closed and healed when I laid my hand on it. Word spread quickly in a village as small as ours. "The Shadow Walker can heal. He brings light. Maybe he is our answer." People began coming to our rendezvous. At first just a few, desperate mothers with sick children, old men with failing bodies. I was scared, but I tried. And every time I touched someone with kindness, with the intention to help, the light would flow through me and into them. Not everyone healed. Some sicknesses were too far gone, too deep. But many did. And for the first time in my life, people looked at me with something other than fear. They looked at me with hope. King Zuberi heard about this, of course. In his black palace, surrounded by his shadow servants, he learned that a boy was bringing light back to the village. He sent soldiers to watch me. Dark-cloaked men who stood at the edges of gatherings, their eyes hidden, their presence menacing. "Ignore them," Mama Thandi advised. "Continue your work. Let them see that light is stronger than their master's shadows." But I was afraid. Every time I used my gift, I felt the soldiers' eyes on me. And sometimes, late at night, I would dream of the Shadow King, his empty eyes staring at me, his voice whispering, "You belong to the darkness too, child. I can feel it in you." I would wake up sweating, my hands still glowing faintly in the dark. Was he right? Was there darkness in me? On the day of the harvest festival, though our harvests were pitiful now, the summons came. A soldier in black appeared at our door, his face hidden behind a mask that looked like it was carved from shadow itself. His voice was hollow, empty. "The boy Ayaz is commanded to appear before King Zuberi." Immediately. My mother stepped in front of me. "He is just a child. He is a wielder of light in the Shadow King's domain. That is treason." The soldier's hand went to his weapon, a blade that seemed to absorb the air around it. "He comes willingly, or we take him by force." "I'll go," I said quickly, putting a hand on Mama's arm. "I'll go." The walk to the palace was the longest of my life. Villagers lined the path, watching silently. Some reached out as if to touch me, as if my light could protect them. Others turned away, afraid to be associated with whatever would happen to me. The palace was worse than I imagined. Inside, the shadows were so thick they felt solid, pressing against my skin. Torches burned with black flames that gave no light, only heat. The walls seemed to whisper. King Zuberi sat on a throne made of obsidian, wearing a crown that looked like it was woven from smoke. What was left of him, anyway? He was barely human anymore. His skin was translucent gray. His eyes were pits of absolute darkness. His fingers were too long, too thin, ending in points like claws. When he smiled, his teeth were black. "The boy who brings light," he said, his voice like wine through a graveyard. "Come closer." I forced my feet to move forward. "Do you know what you are, child?" He leaned forward, and I could smell death on him, sweet, rotting, ancient. "Do you know why the light lives in you?" "The ancestors chose me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "The ancestors. Yes. They chose you because you were born from my darkness. Don't you see? The night I took the sun, 9 months before your birth, your mother was in the village square. She breathed in the first shadow. It entered her womb. It mixed with your forming soul. My blood went cold. You are not purely of light, eyes. You are half shadow. My shadow. That is why you can walk in darkness. That is why you glow. You are fighting yourself, constantly, the light and dark at war in your very blood. You're lying, I whispered. Am I? He stood, and shadows poured off him like water. Reach inside yourself. Feel for the cold place. The place where light has never touched. I didn't want to. But almost against my will, I turned my attention inward. And I felt it. Deep in my chest, below the warmth of my gift, there was a cold, dark space. A place that whispered. A place that wanted. A place that was hungry. I gasped, stumbling backward. Zuberi smiled. You see. You are mine as much as theirs. And I have a proposition for you. Join me, the Shadow King said, his voice suddenly gentle, almost fatherly. Embrace both sides of your nature. Together, we could rule not just this village but all lands. Light and shadow, balanced in power. Isn't that what the ancestors want? Balance? I shook my head, backing away. That's not balance. That's wrong. Is it? He moved closer, and the shadows moved with him. Look at your people, eyes. Suffering. Dying. Because they reject the shadow. But shadow is natural. Night must follow day. Death must follow life. I simply chose to live in the night I prefer. You stole the sun. You made the darkness eternal. And you could help me give it back. His empty eyes gleamed. But not to replace the shadow. To balance it. Day and night, properly divided. Light and shadow, each in their time. All I need is your gift combined with mine. Your light to seal the bargain I broke. Your shadow to maintain my power. For one terrible moment, I was tempted. His words made a sick kind of sense. And the cold place inside me pulsed with interest, with hunger. What if he was right? What if I was meant to work with him? Then I heard my mother's voice in my memory, he is blessed. The ancestors chose him for a reason. And I remembered the faces in the sacred pool. The ancestor who had called me sunbearer. She hadn't said shadow bearer. She hadn't said to join the darkness. She said to trust the light within me. No, I said firmly. I won't help you. Your bargain was made with greed. You didn't want balance. You wanted power. And you'll never have mine. The temperature in the throne room dropped 10 degrees. Zuberi's face twisted with rage, and something else. Pain. Loss. As if somewhere deep inside, the man he used to be was screaming. Then you will die, he hissed. And I will take your light anyway. He raised his hand, and shadows erupted from the walls. The shadows came at me like living things, tentacles of darkness that wrapped around my arms, my legs, pulling me toward the king. I felt them trying to smother the light in me, to drag me down into cold and emptiness. But I fought back. My hands blazed bright, so bright the shadows recoiled. I pulled free, stumbling toward the door. But Zuberi was faster. He appeared in front of me, moving through shadow like water, and grabbed my throat. His touch was ice. My light flickered. You cannot win, child, he whispered, his face inches from mine. I have had 12 years to master the darkness. You have had 12 years to be afraid of it. You are strong, yes. But I am inevitable. My vision started to blur. The cold was spreading from his hand into my body, freezing my blood, dimming my light. And that's when I heard them. Drums. Distant at first, then growing louder. The rhythm of battle. The rhythm of resistance. Zubri's eyes widened. He released me, and I collapsed to the floor, gasping. Through the palace windows, we could see them, the entire village of Massacane, hundreds of people, marching toward the palace. They carried torches that barely pushed back the gloom. They carried weapons, farming tools, mostly, turned to defense. But more than that, they carried fury. At the front was my mother, tears streaming down her face, a spear in her hands. Beside her was Mama Thandi, ancient and bent but moving with purpose. And beside them were the elders, the farmers, the mothers, the children, everyone who had suffered under the Shadow King's curse. "Give us back our son," my mother screamed. "Give us back our son," the crowd roared. Zubri's face contorted. Fools. They think their little lights and sharp sticks can defeat me. I am the darkness. He strode to the palace doors and flung them open. Shadow poured out like a flood, crashing into the crowd, knocking people down, extinguishing torches. But they kept coming. "Eyes is our hope," someone shouted. "We will not let you take him," another cried. I pulled myself to my feet, my hands still glowing. I had to stop this. People would die. My mother would die. But how could I stop a king who controlled shadows themselves? Then I remembered the ancestors' words, "Trust the light within you. Trust the shadow that does not corrupt. The shadow that does not corrupt." I looked down at my hands, at the light pulsing there. Then I looked deeper, feeling for that cold place inside me. The darkness that Zubri claimed was his. What if he was wrong? What if the darkness in me wasn't his shadow at all? What if it was simply the natural shadow that every light casts? I closed my eyes and stopped fighting. I let the darkness rise. But I didn't let it consume the light. Instead, I let them exist together, light and shadow, both parts of me, neither controlling the other. Balance. When I opened my eyes, my right hand glowed with pure white light. My left hand rippled with shadow, but not the sick, hungry shadow of Zubri's power. This was the shadow of nighttime, of rest, of the natural dark that lets stars shine. "Impossible," Zubri whispered, staring at me. I walked toward him, my two hands raised. "You were wrong about me. This darkness isn't yours. It never was. It's mine. Given by the ancestors to help me understand what you forgot." "And what is that?" he snarled. "That shadow is not evil. But stealing the light is." I pressed my hands together, light and shadow merging, and a wave of balanced energy exploded outward. The energy blast knocked Zubri back. For a moment, his shadows wavered. For a moment, the sky above us lightened, just a little. The crowd gasped. My mother screamed my name. But the Shadow King was not finished. He rose, larger now, drawing on every shadow in the palace, in the village, pulling darkness from the very earth itself. "You think you can defeat me with balance?" He was enormous now, a giant figure of living shadow. "I am beyond balance. I am eternal night." He reached for me, and I knew my power, even merged, wasn't enough. I was 12 years old. He had 12 years of shadow mastery. The math was simple. I was going to die. And then the ground shook. The drums stopped. The crowd fell silent. Even Zubri paused. From the sacred cave beyond the village, a light began to rise. Not white light. Not shadow. But golden light, ancient and powerful and alive. The ancestors were coming. They emerged from the cave like a river of light, dozens of them, hundreds, all the generations who had lived and died in this land. Their forms were translucent but real, their faces stern and loving all at once. The ancestor from the sacred pool, the old woman warrior, stepped forward. "Zubri," she said, her voice echoing across the land. "Son of our people. We gave you kingship. We gave you wisdom. We trusted you to lead. Zuberi shrank back, his shadow form wavering. You are dead. You have no power here. We are the land itself, another ancestor said, a great warrior with scars across his chest. We are the roots and the rain and the memory of every sunrise. And you have violated the sacred trust. You made a bargain that was not yours to make, said a third, a young mother holding a child. The sun belongs to all. You stole it for yourself. I wanted to protect my people, Zuberi said, his voice suddenly small, frightened. I wanted to make us strong. You wanted power, the old woman said softly. And in seeking it, you lost everything that mattered. Your humanity. Your soul. Your very self. The ancestors surrounded him. And for the first time, I saw Zuberi clearly, not as a monster, but as a man who had made a terrible choice and been consumed by it. Tears ran down his translucent face. I didn't mean. I didn't understand. He fell to his knees. Please. I am sorry. I am so sorry. The old woman knelt beside him. We know, child. We know. She placed a hand on his chest, and light flowed into him, not destroying the shadow, but freeing the man trapped inside it. Zuberi screamed. Not in pain, but in release. The shadows peeled away from him like layers of rotting cloth. Beneath them was a frail old man, gray-haired and weeping, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time in years. What have I done? He whispered. My God, what have I done? The shadow traders appeared then, those same cloaked figures who had made the original bargain. They materialized from the darkness, their white teeth gleaming. The bargain was sealed with blood, the tallest one hissed. It cannot be undone. The sun is ours. The darkness is ours. The power is. Silence. The word came from all the ancestors at once, a sound like thunder, like the earth itself speaking. The shadow traders flinched. You make bargains with the desperate, the warrior ancestor said, stepping forward. You prey on weakness. You twist truth. But you operate by rules as old as time, and we know them well. He pointed at me. This child was born of the darkness you created. By your own laws, he has claim to it. And he chooses to break what you have made. The shadow traders turned to look at me, their eyes for once showing something like fear. Is this true, boy? One of them asked. You claim the darkness. I looked down at my hands, one light, one shadow. I looked at King Zuberi, weeping on his knees. I looked at my people, watching with desperate hope. I claim it, I said clearly. Not to use it. Not to rule with it. But to return it to what it should be, the natural night that follows day. The rest that follows work. The shadow that makes light meaningful. And the sun? The trader asked. The sun is not yours to keep. It never was. I walked to the black stone where Zuberi's blood had been spilled 12 years ago. The stone that sealed the bargain. I placed both my hands on it, light and shadow together. And I pushed. The stone cracked. Light poured out, real sunlight, imprisoned for 12 years, desperate to be free. The shadow traders screamed. They dissolved into nothing, their forms unable to exist in the presence of such balanced power. The stone shattered. And the sun burst back into the sky. I had never seen true daylight. None of the children my age had. When that first ray of sun broke over the mountains, touching the village of Massacane with warmth we had forgotten existed, we all fell to our knees. It was glorious. It was too bright. It hurt. We shielded our eyes, crying, laughing, screaming with joy. The light touched the withered crops, and they seemed to straighten, reaching toward the sky. It touched the sick cattle, and they lowed with new strength. It touched the faces of the people, and color returned to their gray skin. My mother found me in the crowd and pulled me into her arms, sobbing. You did it. My boy, you did it. But the sun didn't stay. As we watched, it began its path across the sky, the path it had been prevented from taking for 12 years. It moved faster than it should have, as if making up for lost time. And as it set, we held our breath. Would the darkness return? Would Zubri's curse come back? But when the sun dipped below the horizon, it was beautiful. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. Stars emerged, stars we hadn't seen in over a decade. And the darkness that came was natural, peaceful, a darkness you could rest in. The ancestors still stood among us, their forms glowing softly in the dusk. The balance is restored, the old woman said. Day and night, light and shadow, as it was meant to be. She turned to me. You have done well, eyes. But your work is not finished. My heart sank. What do you mean? You walk between worlds. You understand both light and darkness. This gift is rare, precious. There are other villages suffering under similar curses. Other places where the balance has been broken. You must go to them. You must teach them what you have learned. But I'm just a boy. I want to stay home, with my mother, with my people. The ancestor smiled sadly. We know. But the world needs what you carry. The understanding that light and shadow are not enemies, but partners. That balance is stronger than dominance. I looked at my mother. She was crying, but she nodded. I will not stop you. This is your purpose. Zubri, still on his knees, looked up at me. He was old now, truly old, the years he had defied catching up to him all at once. I am sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry for what I took from you. From all of you. The warrior ancestor placed a hand on his shoulder. You will spend the rest of your days making amends, Zubri. Not as king, but as servant. You will help rebuild what you destroyed. Zubri bowed his head. Yes. It is no more than I deserve. 3 days later, I stood at the edge of Massacane with a small pack on my back. The whole village had come to see me off. Children who used to fear me now hugged my legs. Elders blessed me with ancient prayers. Farmers gave me food for the journey. Mothers kissed my forehead. And Mama Thandi, ancient and wise, gave me her staff, carved from the wood of the sacred Imizi tree. This will help you find your way, she said. It knows the old paths. The paths between light and shadow. My mother held me longest. I will see you again, she whispered. I know I will. I promise, I said, though I didn't know if I could keep it. As I walked away from the village, I felt them, the ancestors, walking beside me. Not visible, but present. Guiding. And I understood something then. The darkness inside me wasn't Zubri's curse. It wasn't corruption or evil. It was the simple truth that to carry light, you must understand shadow. To heal the sick, you must know sickness. To restore balance, you must have walked in both extremes. I was the sun-bearer. But I was also the shadow walker. And that was exactly what the world needed. Months later. In Massacane, life bloomed again. The crops grew tall and golden. The cattle grew fat. Children played in the sunshine, their laughter echoing across the hills. And every night, when the sun set in its proper time and the natural darkness came, the people gathered around fires and told stories. Stories of the boy who walked in both light and shadow. Stories of the day the sun returned. Stories of hope. Zubri, no longer king, worked in the fields alongside the people he once ruled. He was thin, weak, but there was peace on his face for the first time in years. He had found redemption in service. And sometimes, late at night, my mother would stand outside our rendezvous and look toward the mountains. Toward the path I had taken. And she would smile. Because every few months, at dawn or dusk, those liminal times between light and dark, she would find a small stone on her doorstep, warm to the touch, glowing faintly. My way of saying, I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I remember you. And she would hold that stone close, knowing that even in the darkness, light would always find a way. The lesson. The elders teach us this: balance is not the absence of darkness, but the wisdom to let light and shadow coexist. Greed takes. Love gives. Power corrupts when it rejects what it fears. But when you embrace both your light and your shadow, when you understand that both have their place, you become whole. You become strong. You become free. The Shadow King wanted all darkness. He lost himself. The sunbearer accepted both. He found his purpose. What will you choose? Sunrise. This was a story from Freeside Tales Crescent Moon. Where light and shadow meet, truth is revealed. Subscribe and return next week for more stories from the lands where ancestors walk, where justice is cosmic, and where every shadow has something to teach. Because the best stories are the ones that change how you see yourself.